All right, so we're sat here with Locust. Locust, welcome to the channel. Jeremy, how you doing?
My man.
Uh,
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm great, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming on the channel.
My pleasure, dude. Always good to see you.
No worries. So, yeah, got a few questions. We've got this tour dropping in a couple of weeks. That's really exciting. I bet you're buzzing to get out on the road. But I wanted to go a little bit, into the history of Locust because you started off very different to where you're at now. You started as an instrumental three-piece band. Now, was that always the intention, or had you just not found the vocalist at the time? What was the beginnings of Locust?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the intention. We always wanted it to be a full on, full lineup band. And I think, yeah, it was kind of the whole aspect of kind of releasing things early like that in a sort of pre-formed state. It kind of came about partly by accident, just because the sort of opportunity presented itself to play with the drummer that we had in that video, Krim, who was like a legend of death metal drumming and like someone that everyone in the band has kind of looked up to for a long time in different projects and stuff like that. And yeah, we just didn't have the lineup, to be honest. It was just me and Alexi, the other guitar player, and we'd written all these songs, felt really good about them, but just were struggling to find a lineup. And then just just so happened to meet Krim at a gig and wanted to show him the songs, and so we sort of managed to get him to listen to the songs, and he liked what he was hearing with it and kind of related to it a little bit on a personal level, on a musical level. And yeah, we kind of it was partly just for fun, but it was also, I guess, a little bit of a strategic thing for us, thinking that it would be cool to like get something out there with Krim on drums, and then that would kind of push our reach, and then we could maybe open to a wider pool of musicians to try and get the right drummer, the right singer, the right bass player. And it kind of did work out like that. It was definitely a an interesting way to do things, like you said, because a lot of people then liked it for what it was that way, being instrumental, being just a three-piece kind of situation, and we had to just plow on anyway and do things the way we wanted to do it. But yeah,
Went pretty viral, didn't it? Because one of the songs got 2.5 million YouTube views. I mean, that's pretty serious stuff. Like that. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Is that? I mean, I suppose Krim probably had an influence in that. What was his previous bands and projects? I don't know him personally. So what's his?
yeah. So he kind of made a name for himself just being a sick metal drummer, and had his own YouTube channel back in like when YouTube was kind of in its infancy, and like just kind of developed a name for himself, and then got invited to, I guess, just he got invited to join Decapitated, and that was where he kind of really became a professional drummer and was on a lot of people's radar through that. And that was kind of great. I think, I don't know, I really loved that era of his drumming. He since left Decapitated. I think he did a little stint playing some shows with Behemoth, and now he plays with Septic Flesh.
Oh,
Um,
that's as
so
big
yeah,
as you can get those three bands, isn't it? Within that kind
he's a
of.
monster.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Not a bad CV, mate.
But I think even by his standards, I think the video kind of popped off even more than he was used to, sort of thing. So it was a real exciting time, man. Not gonna lie, like it felt really exciting, and we'd worked with a few other musicians, and they'd kind of posted some content about us jamming or like working on our songs, and even for them, like people were real excited about it, and it just was a great energy back then. It's like it felt like a lot of people were really curious to see what we had, what we were cooking.
Yeah. Well, I mean that that going as viral as it did, I suppose that gives you such a big platform to be able to, whatever direction you want to go in, you've achieved those milestones already, right? So did that help with gig opportunities and things? Just even being able to say, even if the band it is completely different now, you're a five piece, you've got vocals on there, you've got an album out. It's obviously different to how it started, but does that give you a platform? Did that help with opportunities?
It definitely did help. It definitely like brought a whole bunch of awareness to the band that we wouldn't have otherwise had. And even throughout the process of kind of looking for members, like it put us in contact with a whole lot of musicians and gave us a real, which was really cool, having a sense of like this wider pool of musicians, like international people reaching out from all sorts of countries and stuff to audition and that sort of thing. And even like locally, like a bunch of people that we worked with are now like really good friends and stuff. And it helped for gigs for sure. But I think it's been tricky because I think when it was sort of starting up, and obviously like being involved with people like Krim and stuff like that, like there's this real buzz around it and stuff. And then when you actually finish the album and you have the lineup, it's almost like things are sometimes more exciting in their potential, and then you have to kind of meet the potential. And it definitely like put pressure on us to, we were aware because both me and Alexi, like we love instrumental music, so we are kind
Yeah.
of aware that the vocals really have to step up and kind of complete the songs in a way. And we are kind of aware that not everyone's going to love the fact that we're putting vocals on these songs and stuff like that. But I think, I don't know, the way the album turned out, I'm super happy with it. I really like. I was throughout the process of putting it together, I was kind of like, I have to. By the end of this, I have to feel like this has leveled up since the instrumentals, and I definitely do feel like that. So I'm a bit
I think
relieved with that.
can help. I sometimes think that that pressure can help because it forces you. You can't cut corners. You know that transition between verse and chorus isn't quite good enough. I'll put it out anyway. Like I suppose you can't do that. You've got to force yourself to make everything as good as it can be with that kind of pressure. Do you think Infidel is better because of that pressure? Do you think? I mean, I'm sure, I'm sure you've got high standards within yourselves anyway. You're not going to put out something that's bad, but does that pressure force you to to places that you might not have put yourself in if you didn't have that expectation?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think, like you said, like even when we were making the instrumentals, just me and Alexi writing the riffs and stuff, we definitely had high standards for the whole thing anyway. And it was like we had that sort of attention to all those little details. And so I think, we would have had that anyway, but I think just because it was more, I guess, more on this sort of level of wanting to maximize the potential. I think like we saw Guiltless, the video that went a little bit viral.
Yeah.
We kind of saw that as this window into like what we could achieve if we kind of did things properly. Understanding that the whole quality of things going viral, it's a bit of like, hit or miss. It's kind of not really in anyone's hands. It's just it could happen or it couldn't happen, and we
The
didn't kind of
algorithm,
get.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't take it to be like, all right, this is it. Everything we put out from now on is going to be like this. It was sort of like, I don't know. I took it almost in a bit of a sort of spiritual way of like, this is like a sort of window into what it could be like if we, did what we need to do and kind of held a certain standard and kind of, didn't cut any corners and that sort of thing. So I guess it sort of added pressure in that sense.
I think that's positive. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, did many of the songs from those early days evolve onto making it to Infidel onto the record? Did you add vocals to any of those, or did they stay as they were and Infidel was all separate for those?
No, we added vocals to everything. When we approached Crim, we had this little demo that we were always kind of considering: do we release it instrumentally or do we not release it instrumentally? And it was this 4-track demo.
Okay.
We ended up never releasing it instrumentally. It was just that's what we sent to Crim, and then that's what he learned. And then he came over to London, and we had like a week of jamming with him, and ended up filming on the last day. And we were playing those 4 songs, and we ended up playing, I think, one other song from the album that was kind of we were still writing it. And yeah, I think partly because of the whole aspect of people getting used to it instrumentally, and then potentially not wanting to hear it changed or, with vocals over the top of it, we kind of knew that we could only do that so many times. So ended up just holding on to everything and being, because we had Guiltless out and we had this guitar playthrough for song Eradication 1. That was actually the first thing that came out. But yeah, other than that, we were kind of like, we should just hold on to this stuff. And for us, like, we know that it'll only be complete really when the vocals are on it. And so, yeah.
Okay, so there was always an element of it. It needed the vocals to complete it. Yeah, yeah, I see that. I get that. So, I mean, so is Crim from Poland then? Because you've mentioned obviously Behemoth and Decapitated, and they're Polish bands. Is that where he flew over from when you say he come over? Or?
He's from Austria, but I think because of joining Decapitated, then he kind of he must have kind of got locked into the whole Polish metal scene.
Yeah,
I think there's a few other bands as well.
I mean, they love all things heavy out in that part of the world, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So with Infidel, was there like when you're putting together the track listing and how the album's going to flow, how much do you take into account? Because you'd added vocals to some of the older songs. So how do you make the album flow? Because I think it flows, very nicely. But how do you go about? Did many things change with the older songs that you added vocals on? to make it fit with the newer stuff that was written with vocals in mind, or how do you put the two eras together on a record?
Yeah, it's a good question. There was definitely some moments where it was like we'd made things a little bit maybe technical or a bit sort of progressive structure wise on the instrumental, and when it was time to put vocals on it, it was like this is actually kind of a pain in the ass because it's like you have to add a couple more syllables to then make the transition make sense.
Right, yeah.
Um, and there were some moments that we considered changing and then ended up not changing. There was only one, the song Parasitic, we ended up adding a third chorus because it kind of just made sense structurally. Like instrumentally, we kind of had the second chorus and then the song kind of went in a different direction and then just ended up at this sort of heavy part at the end. Whereas with the vocals, it kind of made sense to come back and kind of tie the song together with the third chorus. And so that was the main one that structurally changed. But in terms of track listing, yeah, I mean, it ended up that we have the most of those songs, those early songs, are at the beginning of the album.
Uh-huh.
And it just not really for any specific reason in terms of that, in terms of like the continuity of things, but more just I don't know. It felt like the first song felt like it had to be the first song.
That's interesting.
And I guess we just yeah we sort of got used to that kind of track listing. The last song on the EP is also the last song in the album, which obviously separates it a whole bunch from the rest.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think I don't know there is a sort of progression to things because it's like I think those early songs were definitely a bit more riff focused, whereas even before we had a singer, like once we'd had those songs, then we started to think a bit more in terms of songwriting and writing for vocals and kind of leaving a bit more space for things and like
Sure.
that whole side of things. So there was a bit of an evolution anyway. And then obviously like we had enough songs for an album, but then it became, I don't know, like me and the other guys as well, like we're all fans of like the proper album format, you know, having a real album that feels like an album, which isn't
Yeah.
so stylish these days, I guess. But like there was definitely a conscious decision at some point to like add little, you know, intros and kind of think of it as a whole work and kind of think of the pacing of things, slow it down a little bit in the middle and then get more intense at the end and stuff like that.
So nice to hear that. I much prefer having a body of work, and I think it's so much easier, I think, to follow bigger bands who don't prescribe to the whole you have to whack singles out every 4 months to stay relevant thing. Bands who can stick to an album cycle and really give a body of work. And I feel like heavier music does that better. Like if you go into, I mean, death metal bands, for example, they don't care about staying relevant or whatever. You know, they'll just put out their album. Do you know what I mean? I feel like that the heavier you go, they prescribe far less, and they'll give you a real body of work, and the albums are far more solid and complete rather than just a load of messy singles compiled into an album after 3 years of single here and a single there and a single there. Do you know? You know, I feel like
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, it's something kind of close to my heart to be honest, because it's a conversation that I've had with people a lot,
yeah,
where even like close friends and stuff like people that I definitely respect their opinions, but there is this sort of sense that like yeah, but that's sort of old these days. Like that's sort of not the way to do things, and if you want to stay relevant, then you have to sort of play the game to an extent. And I
yeah,
kind of hate that on principle anyway, but I think I also quite like to make a sort of rational case for the opposite. Because I still do think that, well, I think there's a few different things, but I think as an artist, there's, you know, it takes a lot of work to actually make an album that makes sense front to back and has this sort of cohesion to it. And you're not really going to develop that skill without actually doing it. You know, writing 10 songs, individual songs, is not the same skill as writing a full album and then kind of developing that, you know, more macro view of a work. And it's the same kind of principle as like organizing a set list and stuff. And a lot of that does come into, you know, come to mind when we're writing songs. It's like how can we enhance the set list live and kind of add to the live show? What kind of song would, you know, really add something? And I don't know, I think having that sort of broader perspective is something that might be at risk of like getting lost by the wayside if everyone has more kind of focused narrow view on singles. And I think like there's a lot of people that I speak to where their favorite bands are their favorite bands because of a single album that really just, you know, either like really captured a feeling, or there's something about the full work, you know, and like the album tracks that wouldn't necessarily be singles, but like kind of have a bit more of a slow pace to them, or like a,
Yeah.
slightly more storytelling type of thing that aren't in such a rush to get to the chorus or like hit the hook or whatever. It's like there is an art to that style of songwriting that I think people are in danger of losing touch with if they're too focused on marketing and writing songs that are immediately catchy and
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
I agree. I think if you're putting out singles, you're prescribing to a certain song structure. You know, intro, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, or whatever it might be, breakdown, whatever. Because
Mm.
you've got to be as marketable as possible. And I think you're right. If you've got an album, you've got three singles that are marketable. I'm not saying everybody prescribes to that, but there are going to be songs that are better placed as singles. They're not necessarily the best songs. They're the best placed to be singles. And then when you're doing an album, that gives you room to be able to play around more with other tracks. Like you say, no rush to get to the chorus, have a different song structure, be a bit experimental with it because you've got the more marketable songs on there. So I think actually doing an album gives you more artistic freedom for, not tracks one and two or track 10, but the ones in the middle to
Yeah,
out with a bit more, right? And yeah, I think you're right. But look, there's
totally.
there's a reason that we're chatting today, Jeremy, because you're just about to embark on a UK tour, and that's very exciting. So you've got how many dates is it on the tour? It's quite a lot, isn't it?
It's nine, yeah, 9 dates, and
Loads.
then we have our separate London show. Like the tour is from the 25th of July till the 3rd of August for us, and then we have the whole of August off, and then we have this hometown London show at the end of August.
Wow, that's a lot. That is a busy summer. So are there any
Feels
cities
good.
on that tour that you've never been to before that you're really looking forward to going to, that you've always wanted to play? Maybe there's a really great scene that you're like, we've wanted to get into there for ages.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few that we have already played, and I'm looking forward to going back there. But there's because even on the last little run that we had, there was a lot of talk of like, when are we going further north? And
Mm.
for us, I think that's a big thing that we're excited about with this tour is finally getting up to like Manchester and even beyond that into Scotland. We have Glasgow and Aberdeen at the end of the tour, and yeah, that for us is really exciting. Like, those scenes are sick. You hear a lot about the Scottish scene, and the like Manchester is huge for bands, and so yeah, we're all
Such
real
a
excited to get up there.
There's so many great venues. I mean, Lions Den is a great venue. I mean, that looks awesome. I'm very very excited for that. I think that's great. But there's so many great venues, isn't there? Star and Garter. There's loads of them. Yeah, it's just got such a great industrial heavy scene. I think the scenes, generally speaking, are a lot better up north anyway. Not always,
Really,
I think Southampton and Brighton are really, really great in particular. But the further north you go, generally speaking, I mean, Nottingham's got a really great scene. Um,
yeah.
yeah, there's so many. But yeah, Scotland as well, right? That's cool. So you never played shows in Scotland before?
No, but one of the first little ventures that we had, even before playing with Crim, me and Alexia went up to Glasgow to play with the drummer of Bleed From Within and Silosis. It's
Oh,
called Ali Richardson. And he's probably one of the sickest metal drummers in the UK. Like, dude is just an animal. And that for us, like that was our very first, that was the first time we played our songs with live drums. And so it feels, I don't know, I'm quite excited to get back up there and kind of,
is he gonna
complete that little loop in my head.
he gonna dip in? Is he out on tour in Europe for any of the festivals, or is he gonna be able to make it to either of the Scottish shows?
It's a good question. I'll have to check that out. I haven't actually
I
looked
haven't
at.
asked him, dude. You need to find that out. Did you see Bleed from Within show at Download with Rob Beckett and Romesh? Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw the social media side of that. Were you there for it?
Yeah, I was there. We met Rob and Ramesh a couple of days before the press tent, so we knew what was going on.
Oh,
Uh,
right, right.
and I was standing in the Blue from Within crowd going, "You're not going to believe this, people. This is about to happen." They were like, "What?" Yeah, it was great fun, man. It was so cool. Yeah, Blue from Within was great. I hadn't seen them before. That was sick. That was really really cool. Okay, so
Yeah, no, they're killing it, man.
what cities
Yeah.
have you been to before on this tour? You said you're excited to go back to a few.
Yeah, Bristol we've been to before.
Right,
Um, I think that might be it actually. In my head, because I've played in Reading, I've played gigs at the Face Bar before.
that's a great.
Um,
That's an awesome.
yeah, and they were great. I have great memories of that. So in
Yeah.
my head, I've played there before, but not actually with Lokust. Yeah, I think it might actually just be Bristol that we've actually played city-wise.
Wow, there you go. So all of the people in all these other cities who've never been able to see Locust before, that is pretty cool. That's very exciting. I'm going to be coming to a few of them. the you know the week leading up to it's all hammer down, because you know that's I've probably got to do that, got to run my festival.
Yeah.
But after that, I mean, straight after, I'm going to be knackered. But our team are coming to run the doors for Southampton. We're coming to, what's after Southampton? What's the following day? Is it Bristol after that? I think it is,
I
isn't
think
it?
Bristol after Southampton, yeah,
So I'm going to be there for a few of them. I'm
and
very,
then
very
Bradford after that.
Bradford. George will be at Bradford in our team. He'll be there for that. That'll be
You
cool.
were saying, yeah, is it his birthday on that
Yeah,
night?
yeah. So he's very excited.
Awesome.
Very, very drunk. So you know, don't expect to
Yeah.
be live that night. You know, but yeah. So how are you going to structure the set? I mean, you know, some of the sets are going to be 40 minutes. Some of them are going to be 50 minutes. You know, we're going to try and get it as consistent as possible. But how much are you going to mix it up? Are you going to be trying to stick to the same every night? What songs are going to make it on there? What should people look forward to? What can you tell us?
Yeah, we've been kind of sorting that out at the moment, kind of trying because we've done quite a lot of headline stuff, and it's usually been an hour that we've been doing our headline set, and that's basically all the songs on the album in a slightly different
Wow.
order.
Ooh, what do you
But
leave out?
that's it, that's it. But we've recently just come back from Europe, and we did some support slots there that were 40 minutes, and that was quite, I don't know, because there's a few songs on the album that are a little bit more like slow building and kind of, I guess what I was saying before about sort of being more like album tracks. And so the set without those, obviously it's a shame to not play them, but there's sort of a more intense, there's like a heightened intensity to just like hammering through the sort of less storytelling songs and having this more condensed kind of brutal 40-minute set.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're sort of playing around with it. We might do something more like that.
Amazing. Okay, so where can people get tickets, Jeremy? We've only got a couple of weeks to go. Where can people get involved?
Yeah, they can head to our social media. We've got all the links if they go, Instagram/6locust. All our stuff on socials is the number six and then locust. Or they can go to sixlocust.com/tour, and then we've got all the stuff linked there for tickets.
Okay, so there's a website with that all on there as well. That's great. Okay,
Yeah.
I should mention as well there's support bands that you can check out: Neon Empire, White Noise, and then there's a local support in every city. And I'm pretty sure all of those bands. Well, I know all of those bands have got it on their socials as well. So if you're fans of any of those bands, you can go straight to their socials and find stuff there as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the sort of variety of bands. It seems like there's quite a lot of different sounds going on and a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
the
yeah.
kind of local supports and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really cool. Different. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things we did with this In Search of Sun tour in May. There was so much variety on, and all the supports had different placements on the bill depending on how big they were. So some were opening, some were main support, some were second on, and it
Right.
mixed it up every night. It was really cool. Obviously, in the same way, you guys will headline every night, and then we're mixing it up with the placements on the bill. It's going to be exciting, man. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. I can't wait.
Thanks for jumping on the channel. Really appreciate it. And
Awesome, dude.
see everybody very soon. So everyone, if you haven't, obviously like and subscribe to the channel, but far more importantly, go and check out sixlocust.com, get yourself some tickets for the tour.